Welcome to AgencyRise, the podcast where digital marketing agencies rise together. I'm your host, Chris Rudolph. I've spent the last decade coaching digital agency founders, helping them scale, systemize operation, and break free from the day-to-day grind. On this podcast, we talk about what really moves the needle for agencies, getting clients, building a team, creating systems, positioning, focus, and freedom. So no hype here, no guru nonsense, just real conversations from the agency trenches. So today I'm joined by Dani Geppert, the co-founder and managing director of Scale with Stability. She's based in Vienna, Austria, and is building a movement of faith-driven entrepreneurs who want to scale without sacrificing their values, their families, and their sanity. So Dani runs the Scale with Stability Summit, bringing together 250 plus entrepreneurs alongside speakers like John Maxwell, Ann Byler, and Christy Wright. She's a mother of 6, a business builder, and proof that you don't need to choose between kingdom impact and real growth. So Dani, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Chris. It's great to be here.
Well, for those who may not be familiar with you, tell us more about you and Scale with Stability.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate being on here and really excited to talk about because my beginning started with the agency world, but kind of accidentally. And I think that is the story for most agency owners. We don't really get into it on purpose. We kind of like, as entrepreneurs, we want to start something and we figure out, one of the easiest ways to make money is providing a service that people don't want to do themselves. And so my story starts in that way. I'm actually a mama of 6, like you said, so I don't
That's
have a lot of
amazing.
time. It is amazing. And the biggest comments or the most comments I get all the time are, oh my gosh, how do you do that? And I don't know if you guys cannot hear it, but I'm in my office right now, so you cannot hear my kids running around. So the number one suggestion I would have for everyone who has kids and is building a business is just have an area that you can close the door. So you already have one great takeaway today. A door really helps, and I use Crisp AI. So there's a plug right there to keep your sound nice and clear because I have screaming and all sorts of stuff happening every day. So, but just a few tips as we get off the ground running. I didn't really want to be in business at the beginning. My husband and I spent probably the first 12, 14 years of our marriage as missionaries. We did missions. We worked with a program called Youth with Mission organization. We did university ministry. We're here in Europe. I'm Canadian actually, and he is German. So
I love
we're
it.
very here in Europe. I love it too. All of our kids are born here, so I actually feel more European than I do Canadian. But we spent a lot of years doing ministry, having no money, having to figure out things. Back in 2018, I just can't even describe it, but I had this moment where God just, I don't know, he gave me like a word that said create. Maybe you've experienced something like this, but for me, it was create. And I was like, what do I create? What do I do? And it brought me kind of like into this online business space where I was like, oh my gosh, I was at a virtual summit. I didn't even know what that was at the time.
Mm.
Learning about all these different ways people could earn money. Back then it was like Amazon FBA, was building funnels. It was all these different things. And I was like, oh my gosh, there are real people like me, moms who are like blogging and they're earning money with something called affiliate. They're, building websites and earning money or like just from ads. And I was so intrigued, like, how could I just earn a little extra money from my family without having to leave my home? That was really my first goal. And so I started learning more about blogging. And then I started wondering, like, how do I actually create a business? And then I started getting into, well, I'm not selling anything. I'm not making any money. So now I have to learn about sales. And then I realized I wasn't actually talking. No one knew what I was doing. So I had to learn about marketing. And so I kept like falling deeper and deeper into this like business space. And at that same time, because I'm a believer, I believe in God. I feel like God was showing me just the potential with business. Like he was opening my eyes. He was like, Annie, business can be so much more than just, providing for your family. Business, you can be creating spaces for people to work. You can be creating new economic possibilities for your community. You can fund projects. You can invest into other businesses using what you create from your business. And so I had this whole new perspective of what I could do in business. And so that got me really excited, which I think helps. propel me to do crazy things like, let's keep doing business. And I'm not earning any money. I don't know if you're listening and you've been in that situation where you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm not earning anything. Why don't I just give up? I all of a sudden had this vision. I had this passion. I was really excited. And so that brought me into like year two. Year one, I made $7 because I figured out you can sell an ebook. Year two, I was like, okay, I'm going to get serious about this. And I ran my first virtual summit.
I
I
love
didn't
it.
know what that was, but I was like, okay, well, what if I could just bring people together and I can create this experience and make money from that? And I did. And it brought in 1,000 new leads. We created our first four figures in our business, which is huge because at that time I was struggling to sell like a $27 course. And so all of a sudden, this whole new world of like digital marketing, virtual events, like I was like, oh my gosh, if I could just rinse and repeat this, like I would have like a stable four figures every month and it would be kind of fun. I get to know people. I become kind of like a name. People know who I am. I'm not just this mom who, is working, doing a little side hustle. And that led me to my virtual event agency, which that was a number of years ago, but I had launched Risen Events was my first agency, and we scaled that, a small team. And last year, it was actually merged into what I'm doing right now, which is live in person events with Scale with
I love that.
Ability Summit, and totally not what I expected or planned.
Man, you never know. And I love that, Danny. Like so many, I mean, pretty much most agency folks that I talk to is an accidental business. Like it wasn't the 10 or 15-year plan. Actually, I can only think of maybe like a handful of that I've ever met that had that type of situation before. But what I see in the agency world and in the online space is that the people are curious, they're fast learners, and they're taking the momentum from one thing to the next thing, and then they end up where they're at. So I love Lo love love your progression. Yeah, tell me a little bit about, because I know when you're starting your own agency, tell us a little bit more about that process. I imagine with virtual events, you hit, the COVID period too. Just maybe tell us a little bit about that.
So oddly enough, I get so many people that were like, "Oh, you did it because of COVID," and I was like, "No, I didn't do it because of COVID. It was around that time. I did it because I was at home with my kids, and I was like, what can I do as a service that makes sense?" Well, I actually didn't even think of doing it as a service until later on. It just ended up kind of like happening in that time. So not even my plan. I had run the first event just before COVID hit, I believe, 19, somewhere around then. It was a success. I tried to like repackage it and like my initial plan was like, maybe I'll make a course because everyone was into passive income. Right? I was like,
Mhm.
I could make like an evergreen course and do this passively, and then I don't have to like do a lot of stuff. But trying that out for a few months, like it didn't really work very well. Right. I wasn't getting anyone buying my coaching course. And I was like really frustrated, man. What can I what else can I do? And I had a coach I was working with at that time who was trying to help me just refine my offer and figure out what I was even good at. Like I was trying to figure it out. And she was like, "Man, you just had this successful event. What if, you did that for someone else?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so much work. Like I can't even imagine." Here my thinking was I'm going to just sell a course for like, I don't know, $1,000 or something. And she's like, "Well, what would you charge if you just did it for someone completely?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, like a lot of money. I guess like $10,000." Right at the time, I was like $10,000. Like for
Mhm.
me, that was mind-boggling money. And she's like, "Well, what if you just like you offered it and you kind of positioned, here's your basis offer of like the course and some material, and then like you do everything for the person and run their event." And I was like, I guess I don't know who's going to pay $10,000 for that. And lo and behold, I put it out there and I got my first 10,000 sale within the first 20 days of me even. And I was like, so people would rather spend that money and let me do it. And that's kind of what launched me into agency. Like I didn't even know it was a thing. I didn't know people would pay for it. It was just like me dreaming like, man, that was a lot of work. What would I charge to do that completely for someone and then just doing it, just testing it out and then realizing this is a viable offer. And there was COVID. So that helped.
Man, yeah, the timing. I think that's the value that you bring that up. I know when you're in it, like your focus, there's stress. A lot of times we don't see all the possibilities or even an opportunity sometimes right in front of us. So I think that's really wise that you had, a mentor, advisor, someone from the
Yeah.
outside looking in that sees things that we don't see. I think that's kind of that even how our brains are wired a lot of times. We're made for community. We're made for people to like mentors and advisors and peers to really speak into our life. So I love that you had that in place, and yeah, and to see it take off so quickly, that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely surprising. And that's one thing that I really live by. It's all about relationship. So whether it's someone speaking into your life, a coach or a consultant, changes the way you look at things. I see that also in events, right? Where and I don't know if this is the same for you, but so often I've gone to like a conference or I've had a conversation with someone in a hallway or I've heard something on stage that's like shifted something in my thinking, shifted my belief, or it's allowed me to borrow belief that wasn't there in myself. And so I think, especially in our age, when we're talking right now about, you're an agency owner, mainly working from home, we have AI coming at us from all over the place. Even more, I think it's so important to bring people into our life or go out to events or all those things where you can experience that relationship, because I think without that support, it's very easy to feel isolated and depressed and like, what am I doing? And it's easy to lose belief, momentum in what you're doing. So I'm a strong believer in like what a mastermind coaches, putting yourself in the right rooms with the right people. That's going to make a change in your business and those relationships, even if it's just helping you emotionally or mentally or strategically. Often those relationships contribute to more revenue, right? Because they might be your next client. They might be know your next client. So it's all the more important to be just in front of people, getting in front of them in events, on stage, online, doing virtual events, getting a podcast, stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that you said that because it can be so isolating, especially if you're working remotely or from home. You can't be like transparent with your team a lot of times, or even like have the type of team where they can bring that perspective or that encouragement or that challenge. And then also you obviously can't do that with your clients as well. So I see that so often. So I actually like what you touched on. I think if we're not seeing already like the trend towards even live events, I think is going to get even bigger, especially with AI. I think the longing for personal connection, and you're right. Like I could look back at my own business over the years, and some of the biggest inflection points and change making events happened in person, and
Mm,
that relationships were started. So yeah,
yeah.
right on with that. What has been some of the toughest lessons that you've learned along the way?
It's like every day a tough lesson, especially if you're doing events. I think one of the tough lessons I learned was like last month, where I was working on contracts for. It's funny because I'm in events and I'm not great at details, which is odd. You would think that me being in events is great at details, but I would say like one of the failures that was just frustrating with me the most was like one week. I just kept on getting someone sending me like, "Oh, this was wrong on the contract," or "This was wrong on the contract," or "This was," and I just felt like, "Oh my gosh, what am I good at? What am I good at?" It's just like a terrible week. And sometimes I think we just have these weeks where you're like all of your failures that kind of get in your face, and then you have a choice to like, "Okay, am I gonna let this get me down and like I'm not cut out to be this leader, this person, I should bow out, or are you going to move forward and think, okay, how can I do better, right? And it might not be me doing better, but it might be, okay, I actually need a better system. Like for contracts and those details, it's just because of a broken system. Like I'm really good at flippantly deciding things and going through and adding things in without going through and double checking that. So that for me, just the struggle with myself is probably one of the biggest challenges. Dealing with Danny, dealing with my day to day. how do I get out of ruts when I'm feeling slow and I don't feel like doing anything? How do I deal with myself when I'm excited and I have like a million ideas and I want to do them all? And I'd say that's probably for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of us is like, how do we rein ourselves in or bolster ourselves up depending on the season? Yeah, I think that's probably been the most difficult thing.
Ooh, that's really good. Because I think, I call it like the entrepreneur roller coaster ride. You have like highest, in one week you have the highest highs, and then later that week can be the lowest of lows. Is emotionally how you're feeling, and sometimes that can be even within the same day. But I
Yes.
love how you said, sometimes we just think I'm terrible, or I'm like we reflect on ourselves. But I love that you brought up that no, my system that I'm using isn't where it needs to be, or it needs to be refined or changed. And I think that that's a really healthy way to look at it. I love that.
Yeah. And then just take an action.
Yes. Yes. And well, what has been some of the keys to the growth of your businesses so far?
Mm. I'm gonna go back to, like, those relationships. The key I mean, one, cash is king, right? So we need sales, and where does sales come from? Sales come from people, and even though I fight with myself and I like to hide behind doing fun projects or things, before it was like designing a new logo or a web page for myself and feeling like that's productive, that doesn't actually bring in the cash, right? It doesn't bring in the cash flow. It's those relationships. It's your sales pipeline. Say that having a good and healthy sales pipeline is something that I'm still learning and still fight. Like, as a team, like this is something that we're building and like, let us create relationship with people and learning how to communicate with people so they understand what we're offering has been the biggest driver of growth. Like they buy, when we're looking right now, scale stability, right? We're selling event tickets, which is historically not the easiest product to sell, right? Event tickets, it's a location based, like not everyone, like it's hard sell because you have to leave your house and maybe fly and you're investing a lot of money. But what has massively helped is just being so focused on sales and people. All right, where are we finding leads? Where are we gonna get on podcasts? Are we looking at ads? Are we like how do we just keep that going and then learning that sales process? So for us, like we're still in the midst of learning a decent sales process. This is the second year we've run this event. We're almost like we're doing really well. We're like almost 80% sold out for the event, which is awesome, but it's not that easy. And it's like a year of the marketing. So I would say the key to growth is just like focus on the things that matter, those needle moving tasks. And often it's relationships, it's people they're needing people buy from people, right? People buy from people. So getting on calls and understanding, okay, where are we lacking in that process? Where can we do better? What can we tweak and refine? We have John Maxwell speaking next month for Scale Stability. I'm dropping that at Scale Stability in Arkansas. That's what we're doing. And John Maxwell speaking. And he said something at an event I was at a few years ago. And he talked about how two of the reasons, let's say, that he has grown so much, like multi-billion-dollar businesses. The first was he does these lunch and learns where he's meeting a person who just does things better than him every month. And he asks them like 7 questions. But one of the questions is, who do you know that I need to know? Right. And he said, out of
That's good.
that one question has like scaled his business like crazy. The second thing I learned and took away from this 20-minute talk that he did, which is insane. The second thing is that they're constantly tweaking. Every week they're constantly tweaking. And that's for me leading this movement, this brand and event. It's like, what can we be tweaking? What can we be fixing every week? What are the little changes that we can make that are going to make the difference?
Oh, that's really, really good. I love that question too. I'm going to borrow that. That's super. Tell us a little bit more about Scale with Stability and what it's all about.
Yeah, I love such a good question. I'm so excited about it. If you can't tell, if you're listening to this and you've been in business for any amount of time, you understand how difficult it is, especially as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, agency, wherever you are. You know how hard it is to be building. You know, if you're like me, I have 6 kids, right? I have a marriage. So we're not just building business. There's so many other things happening in life. And the challenge for people like us is that it's really hard to build something that lasts without us losing our marriage or our values or our faith or our, we burn out. I think entrepreneurs and scaling, small to medium sized businesses are the ones who are struggling the most. They have highest burnout rates, suicide rates, divorce rates, all of that. And my business partners, JC Height and Karen Height, and myself have experienced that, have worked with so many owners who have exactly that same story, right? They are desperate to build, to create legacy, potential for their families, for their communities, but it's hard. And we've experienced that ourselves in our own personal lives. My daughter last year had a stem cell transplant, right?
Oh, wow.
Crap
Yeah.
happens, right? It's terrible, right? We all go through these really crappy, terrible times. We all have a reason to give up. And this is why we wanted to start something like Scale Stability. Just this big question is like, how can we build businesses that are stable, even when we have things like war, when we have things that happen like my daughter needing a stem cell transplant that we didn't expect, right? Or other health things or financial crises. Like, how do we become the people that can be so stable and build businesses despite the crap that life kind of gives to us? And so, out of that desire, out of that vision, we decided to build something called Scale Stability, where we're bringing in people who've done it. I said we have John Maxwell. He's done it. He's failed forward, right? If you know anything about John Maxwell, he's made a lot of mistakes, but he's built something amazing. And Ann Byler, if you've heard of Auntie Anne's Pretzels, I think everyone has heard
Mhm.
about. She built out of trauma. Like if you hear her story, like she came out of trauma in her 40s, messed up story, and built this huge brand. We were like, how can we bring more of these leaders into the room and all gather together to support each other, to network, to create those relationships like we talked a little bit earlier about, Chris, right? It's all about relationship, and bring in like the wisdom of the people who have figured it out. And that's the heart behind Scale Stability.
I love it. I love it. I know you touch on a couple things, but I know, running a business with kids and the demands of family. What are some other tips that you can give us?
Well, besides the Office door and the crisp AI to mute any sound coming, I have to be very, very clear that I have a husband who is amazing and supports. So just having a relationship and being able to be open and discuss needs and schedules and communicate, like marriage is hard anyway. Then throw business on top of it and 6 kids on top of it. It's like just catastrophic. But I would say, like, in our marriage, we're able to talk, and that makes a huge difference. I wouldn't be able to build without having a partner by my side who's supportive. Not everyone has that, but we are able to create relationships that can give us that energy, that can give us that support. So I'd say wherever you are, like if you're building in the midst, you're a single mama or a single papa, find those people that can support you to keep going. I think that's key, just to not be in isolation. And Chris, you had mentioned that before, right? Like often we're building in isolation. That's one of the it's just a fact. Like if you're in an agent and you're like digital marketing agency, any agency, that you're often alone in your office. So I think most important is like have people around you, whether it's virtually or around, that someone can help you make lunch, right? Like while you have kids, or dinner. People are really important, and AI to cover the sound, and a locked door. You
I love
working. Oh, headphones too. I got
I
some
love
nice
it.
canceling
Yeah.
head.
That's why I have mine on right now. I hear, well, we're going to enter the rapid fire round. I'm going to fire off a question and you can fire off an answer back. So, what are some of the most helpful software tools that you use on a daily basis?
Daily, well, I'm using a lot of AI, and I got to be honest, the last couple days I've been building out Claude Code, and it has just changed everything for me. So I'm using it every single day. It has helped me with, we talked about sales pipeline, helped me with my social media, like everything. So that is like my non-negotiable everyday tool right now is Claude Code. A little bit more technical, but they have Cowork right now, which is much easier, and you can start it. And that was my entry point into Claude Code. I tried Cowork and I was like, oh my gosh, it has organized my desktop. It helps me do emails. Like it's the executive assistant I've been praying for. takes a little bit of building, but I love it. Crisp AI, like I said, because I'm a mom who works at home with 6 kids. Also, that transcribes and records everything that is happening. So I'm able to use the transcripts and I repurpose that into social media content or anything. I use Riverside quite a bit as well if I'm doing video stuff, and that's where we're on right now. I love Riverside, makes it really easy to cut up everything. So those are some tools that I very much love.
Awesome. What's one book or mentor who has helped you along the way?
I'm going to say right now, I read a lot, but I'm enjoying Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. I watch Rory
Mm,
Sutherland a lot online on YouTube. He's British and he worked for many, I think still, for Ogilvy in ads. He just thinks differently. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I've
He's
heard
the
the name.
Okay, Rory Sutherland. So just look into him. He thinks about things differently. He's a marketer, does ads, but also psychologically. So I very much enjoy how he takes problems and thinks of them in a different way than I would think of it. Very lateral. Um, yeah, that's a book that's challenged me more to get out of my normal way of thinking.
I love it. I love it. What's one daily habit or routine that you swear by? It could be like business or personal related.
Daily habits that I swear by. I wake up fairly early in the morning because I'm a morning person. And I spend a little bit of time with my kids in the quiet because the rest of the day is very busy. And I read a little bit, like I'll open up my Bible and read a bit in the morning. And because I'm away, I'm working, I don't get to spend a lot of time with them. So it's just nice to have those morning times. And one other weekly rhythm that I suggest to everyone, whether you're a Christian or not, is having a sort of Sabbath or
Mm,
our family like a Shabbat. We just stop everything on Friday. We celebrate. And then I don't clean the house or do anything on Saturday. Like nothing. Our house is terrible. It's a mess. But I take a break from being a mom and I take a break from being me. And I'm just human. Like I'm just me and read and chill and relax. And that gives our whole family tons of energy for the rest of the week. It's our favorite day of the week.
I love it. That's good. I love how you said we don't clean or anything. We've kind of strategically placed like a cleaning power hour at the end so that we can get the house back together for the week. So I love
Yeah,
that.
we kind of
Um,
do that too. Like at the end, we don't clean up during, and it's a terrible day, but like we'll do like a little like tidy up before we move into the rest of the week.
all right. So, what's one piece of advice that you'd give all of the agency founders out there who are listening to this?
Okay, if you haven't heard of that from this at all, like relationships and leverage events. So I think it's something that maybe agency owners don't think about too much. We often go to like ads or we think of other things, but I think when you put yourself out there, when you start talking to people, get on podcasts, create your own stage, create your own event, big things happen. And I think most people don't feel like they have like as an owner, you think, oh well, I don't do events or I'm not ready for that. You can do it with like nothing and a no one, and it is absolutely helpful because you start positioning yourself as like a leader, a thought leader. And I think as an agency owner, when you start positioning yourself as a thought leader in your space, people naturally become your client. They naturally, oh, they see you have a stage and you're connected with these people. I would say that's the number one thing I'd suggest. Use your own events.
Mm,
Do it virtually. It's easier.
that's really good. That's gold right there because I think a lot of times the agency founders that I work with and I talk with, like it's like the cobbler's kids have like holes in their shoes, like their own like brand building and their own marketing takes a back seat
Yes.
to their
We're
clients.
our own worst marketers.
Exactly. So if our audience wants to learn more about you and your business, where's the best place to find you online?
You can find me at DaniGeppert.com. So just my own personal brand. That's Geppert, or I think I have DaniGo.com, something like that. But check out Scale with Stability. You'll find me there, scalewithstability.com. But yeah, I'm everywhere on social media, LinkedIn or Facebook mainly, because I'm old, I guess.
Love it, Danny. This has been amazing. Thanks so much for sharing all your wisdom and your story, which is just so inspirational. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris, for having me. And I really appreciate this time together.
Amazing. Amazing. And for everyone tuning in from the gym, in your car, or at your desk, thank you. And if this episode was helpful for you, be sure to subscribe and share it with another agency founder who needs to hear it because agencies don't rise alone, they rise together. This is Agency Rise.